So my story is one miracle after another because that's what it is. I mean, getting through this, it's one miracle after another. I was diagnosed with end-stage liver disease, I think mid-July of 2017, shortly after I moved, actually a year after I moved to Texas. Um, I was referred to Methodist Specialty and Transplant in San Antonio about a year later. So I was sick enough that they wanted to regularly monitor my health, not sick enough to be on a waiting list. So the doctors wanted to just keep an eye on me, keep track of my overall condition. It started out with um, gastroenterologist looking at me because that's who I was referred to initially. So they looked at me for a year, and then when they passed me off to some hepatologists, those hepatologists were coming to San Antonio. I think St. David's, up from San Antonio to Austin, and they would look at me every 6 weeks, every second Sunday of every other month, something weird like that. And so they did the regular blood test. I was really high iron, high. They thought that I was on supplements, which I was like, I don't like itching, so I'm not on supplements. Medications, myriad of medications, phlebotomies, that kind of thing. But this went on for quite a while. I went through so many symptoms. I got to where I welcomed the symptoms. I got so used to it. It's like every new irritant, I just rolled with it. It's loss of sleep, it's the itches, it's loss of strength, mobility, all that kind of thing. And so I'm just going downhill pretty good. 2020 hits, and we have COVID. And so these hepatologists that were in San Antonio, they quit, or that were coming to Austin, they quit coming up to San Antonio and they reverted to telemed. At which point I was like, I'm not paying for telemed. It's something stupid. At this point, your body, because your liver doesn't work anymore, it retains, I think, ammonia. You get pretty loopy in the head. And so I was like, I don't trust. I have no reason to pay for like a phone call or a Zoom meeting with a doctor. I had no, I'd never heard of it, and I'm not going to do it. So I kind of just quit seeing them. I think I was still doing blood tests, but when I look back, I hadn't seen anyone in at least 4 months. So I don't know. I think it was 4 months in between when COVID hit or whatever. But one morning, I wake up, and it's one morning in February, and I wake up, and I just felt a nudge from God. Specifically, it had to be. I was like, I wake up and I'm like, why am I hearing this now? It's like, you need to get a hold of the transplant facility in San Antonio, because it's not if it happens, it's when it happens. You're gonna need a new liver. And so I'm waking up, and I just have my coffee or whatever, and that feeling's just with me, it just won't leave. And so I called him, and I talked to him a little bit, and they're like, yeah, why don't you go down and get, this is on let's see, this is on February 19th of 21. And I called that day, and they said, well, just go down and have your blood tested there locally. And they gave me a telemed appointment for the 25th. And so I was like, okay, this was on Friday. That was a Friday. So I go down and I get tested, and I'm through the weekend, and I'm figuring, on the 25th, we'll discuss it, see where I'm at. Everything will be the same, and I'll get to do one of these telemed things. Well, no, they called me on the 24th. They're like, hey, stop what you're doing and come on down here. And I was like, what, like, you want me there first thing tomorrow morning or what? And they're like, no, stop what you're doing. They told me, you're number one on our list. You're sicker than anybody we have here. Your liver could fail at any minute. I was like, whoa, okay. And I didn't feel any different. It was just the same, like, constant downhill thing for me, but I didn't feel like I was about ready to die. I'm a terrible passenger, so I drove us down there, and they take you through all the testing that you have to go through to make sure that you're going to survive a liver transplant, which is a lot. And they go through site tests and that. they want to check you and make sure you don't have any other diseases, or they need to make sure that you're a good, viable candidate for a liver, just because they're not going to give a liver to somebody that might not make it through it. So they do. They go through everything, and I'm passing everything, and the doctors are telling me good things, day after day, and they get me healthy enough. And about not quite 2 weeks later, the doctor comes in. He comes in and he says, "Hey, good, you're getting healthier." And I'm like, "Oh, this is good." He says, "Your MELD score is going down." And I'm like, "Oh, all right." He's like, "Well, he says you're about to fall off you're about to not be number one." I'm like, "I'm falling off the podium." And he's like, "Yeah, you're about to lose first and second or whatever." I don't know exactly what he said, but it was, I had so much anxiety because I couldn't sleep. They don't let you sleep in the hospitals. And the stuff that you have to go through, the bed, the food, all of it, none of it's good. But he did say, "Just chill out. I think we're working on something here, and it'll be okay." And I honestly don't remember whether that was early morning on the 11th or later in the afternoon on the 10th. But the next time I'm talking to like a doctor, part of the liver team, he comes back and he says, "Hey, you need to get a hold of your family because we're going to prep you for surgery tonight." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, we found a donor." And he said, "Get a hold of your family and have them get down here because you're going to get prepped at 6:00 tonight." So I was like, "Okay." And I called my wife. They were on their way up anyway. My oldest had come from Boise, and they were on their way. And I said, "Hey, pull over. I got some news for you." So they pull over, and I tell them, and they're all happy, and they show up. And so we hang out for, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours or something. And I know that my wife was there with me when they were prepping me later, because at first I go and they shower and I do that. And my family is there. This is surgery night, and they did it like midnight. I'm prepping it at 11:00. My wife was there before I went in for surgery. The last bit until they roll me in and say, "Okay, we're gonna, we're really getting ready now." And she takes off, and so I'm there. God's there. Great surgeons and nurses are there, and my family was nearby. So, and everything went great. It went great. And after that, it's 2 weeks of recovery, and I made it through it. And then 2 weeks after that, they made me spend the next 2 weeks at a hotel down the street because they don't want you going too far. I live in Round Rock and in San Antonio, and they want me right there in case something goes wrong. So I spent another 2 weeks in a hotel, and anyhow, I have been on a self-improvement plan constantly ever since, both mentally, physically, spiritually. I challenge my head all the time because I do so much around here and fix things myself. I I got a lot going on. I'm not working, and I'm so much more busy than I was when I was working. So, and that's fine. That's how it works in our family. Physically, my daughter joined the gym, wanted to do the gym thing, so I joined with her, and we go to the gym a couple of times a week. Spiritually, I'm with I do a Bible study and volunteer. I'm their treasurer, but which is a pretty small role. But I get to do a Bible study, and that is once a week, and it follows a school year, so it's a pretty long Bible study, and we do it every year. And so I got that, and since my transplant, I've been able to enjoy 3 more wedding anniversaries: 26, 27, and 28, which is really cool. I got to teach my youngest how to drive. I taught my oldest 10 years prior, and so I got to teach her how to drive, and I get to watch her navigate through high school and get her first boyfriend and become a cheerleader and all that good stuff. I was able also to nudge my oldest daughter from a good job that she had into following her career because she had a degree from Montana State. she went out and applied and got the first job she applied for, which is a good one, at, I think, St. David's in Boise, and they've helped her advance her career. She just got another degree with Weber State, so I got to witness that. So she's advancing her education and her position, so it's pretty awesome. She's pretty happy in what she's doing. That's great too. And I got to lead my family back to church. And since my recovery, I've managed to get back in there and haven't had any, serious issues with that. And I have got to witness my wife and my youngest daughter got baptized in the name of Christ, which is fantastic. But that was pretty cool. I received so many blessings. Everyone involved deserves to know how appreciative my family and I are. TOSA, obviously, and I'd like to include Aurora because TOSA worked with Aurora, which is in Arkansas. It's their version of TOSA, bigger in name only, I suppose. And my donor, of course, and his family and friends and loved ones and those he's left behind, especially. I had a desire to write that family. Before a year passed, I really wanted to get something out to them. And so I contacted the hospital and I said, hey, how do I get a hold of this family? I want to write them. And they're like, yeah, we don't even know who it is. We couldn't tell you. You need to get a hold of TOSA. And so they gave me Texas Oregon Sharing Alliance. They give me their contact information. And I called, and it was a nice lady. Her name is Gabby. And she said, okay, I'll go ahead and research your case and I'll get back to you soon. And she did. She got back to me real soon. And she said that she had worked with Aurora and, told me who they were. And she gave me some contact information for them, but also kind of told me how things go. You write the letter and it goes through TOSA's hands. But in this case, it doesn't go from TOSA to the donor. It goes from TOSA to Aurora to the donor. So I don't know if it ever made it in that year's time. I really don't. I've never asked. Eventually, though, working with TOSA and Aurora, between them, they got it so I have contact information for my donor family, and we've been in contact ever since August of 2023. So that's been fantastic working with those two organizations. Anyhow, my donor himself, his name is Braden. He was 19 years old. Fine young man. He's survived by two brothers, a sister, obviously a mom and a dad, and cousins, aunts, and uncles, and loved ones. He had a girlfriend, I know that. Plenty of friends. I'm sure from his parents' perspective that they probably figured he's got a promising life ahead of him. He was into football and hunting and fishing. He did some long range shooting activities. And he had a love for the Lord also. And these are all things everything I've heard about the kid we have in common, except a girlfriend. I'm married. So he cared about people's souls enough to nourish their faith. And he cared about people in general enough to give everything he could, even in passing. So that kid, I guess organ donation was one of those things he was really passionate about. He got COVID about 3 months before the tragic accident that took him, and he told his dad, I can't die for 90 days because I guess there's some kind of rules about what an organ can come in contact with, or certain diseases or illnesses or something like that. And this is from his dad. His dad tells me this, and 93 days after he was diagnosed with COVID, it's the day he passed. So I'm sure that the liver that I'm sporting, I'm sure it went through quite a few tests, but luckily for me that it's all good. I think my body likes it. So Braden, he had this premonition. He had a premonition where he told his dad one time, an early exit, I suppose. He told his dad that he was never going to reach the age of 21. And I'd be freaked out if I was a dad, and I'm not sure why his dad told me that, but maybe because he didn't. But that's kind of one of these weird things that we have in common too. I was telling a friend before I ever moved to Texas or knew that I was sick that I used to tell them we'd get to talking about something, and someone would come up with something I'm supposed to care about. And I say, I just don't care. I'm checking on it really. And I'm saying it jokingly, but I'm not sure that I was joking. I don't care. I'm checking on it really. And we used to just kind of laugh about it, but it turns out I was about to. So this guy, I've got a pretty strong connection to him, and I feel privileged to share the spirit with his family. I know that his survivors know that every year on March 12th, I celebrate the miraculous gift of continued life on that anniversary date. But I also told him, I said, all days will be honored on his behalf. I also wanted to, I don't know if this will make, I wanted to share, his dad shared his favorite verse with me. It's Isaiah 40:31. It says, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar on high wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. And verse sharing has become a thing with Stephen and I. When we write letters back and forth, we share verses. And these letters, they have moods, not, I don't want to say theme because that kind of cheapens it for me. I'm not a theme guy. It's a pet peeve of mine, weird one, but it is. But these letters all have a mood, and there's always a verse that fits it perfect. And we send off, we share verses back and forth, and that's kind of become kind of a thing with us. I think because of God's love and selfless acts on his part, diligent work on the part of TOSA and Aurora, skilled surgeons, nurses, the support and prayers I have for my family, I get a chance to show some gratitude and maybe even carry the torch away. So I thank everyone for that. And I have a favorite verse of my own. Hebrews 10:24 is my favorite verse, and it is, let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. And I'm leaving you with that.